Welcome to the Wellness Abundance Podcast. I'm Melissa King, your podcast host, board certified health and wellness coach, certified personal trainer, and founder of Wellness Abundance Coaching. I created this podcast to help women like you learn more about your body so you can age gracefully and navigate the different seasons of your life effortlessly. If you're a woman searching for answers to unexpected weight gain, intense PMS, chronic fatigue, fertility challenges, PCOS, brain fog, and more, this podcast is for you. We'll do a deep dive into all areas of women's health and connect with experts so you can get clarity on what's happening within your body. This will empower you to take control of your mindset on the natural aging process and create flexible lifestyle habits that work for you at any age. Now, grab your favorite glass of wine, cup of coffee, or mocktail, and enjoy the episode. All right, welcome back to the Wellness Abundance Podcast. I'm super excited to have my nurse practitioner friend back on the podcast, Dana Salisbury Duarte. So welcome back, Dana.
Hi, thanks so much, Melissa. Happy to be back.
Yeah, this is exciting. So Dana and I are going to chat about HRT, also known as hormone replacement therapy today. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring Dana back on to talk about this is a little bit selfish reason is I don't know a lot about it. So I personally want to learn more about it. And I also realize that there's a lot of women out there that are like me and don't know a lot about it and could really benefit from education on it, on what it is, and just all the fun details about it. So, yeah. So, Dana, where do you want to start? Do you just want to start with just what exactly is hormone replacement therapy?
Sure, yeah, that's a really great place to begin. But as a disclaimer, I will say I am not somebody who needs full replacement therapy, so I can't speak from full firsthand experience, but an observation of my patients and of their experiences. Um, I have learned a lot from my patients and then also my training. So, hormone replacement therapy means that you are supplementing a hormone that your body is lacking. So, the one that a lot of us are probably very familiar with is your thyroid. So, if you have like a Hashimoto's disease or hypoactive thyroid, a lot of people will supplement um, their thyroid hormones in order to bring them up to normal or optimal levels. So bioidentical hormone therapy, when we talk about it, like HRT or BHRT, um, it's typically referring to replacing sex hormones.
Mhm.
So your testosterone, your progesterone, and your estrogen.
Okay, so this is really exciting to me because I'm glad that you brought up the thyroid because I have heard that in the past, but when I was preparing for this conversation, thyroid thyroid hormone replacement therapy did not even pop into my head. So that's cool to know that yeah, that's a thing. So what else do you want to share with us? Do you have anything else you want to share in the beginning just to kind of give us more of an introduction on HRT, or what would you like to talk about next?
Sure. So I'd say if we're talking about women in particular, there's typically two stages where we might offer hormone replacement therapy. So one is when they're in perimenopause, and that is when your hormones begin to decline and you start having symptoms that are uncomfortable for you. Some examples would be hot flashes, night sweats, um, brain fog. Like there are a lot of symptoms that can occur as part of hormone loss. But when you have not had a period for an entire year, or let's say you had a hysterectomy,
Hmm.
you go into menopause, and that's a time where no more periods. They're done, or they've been done for a year. So those two phases are different. And it's important to understand which phase you're in. Obviously, you probably know based on if you have a period or not. But it's important to understand as a provider, because when you're dealing with perimenopause, you have a fluctuation and you have a cycle, but there's a lot of change happening. And when you're in menopause, pretty much everything is gone. And so you need everything. Um,
Hmm.
and there's been a lot in the medical community to basically suppress that hormone replacement therapy can be very beneficial and very helpful. And it's just now starting to come to light as we have started looking more into women's studies, and all of that was just suppressed for so long. So now there are some really cool, like groundbreaking ladies who are scientists and they're doctors, and they're talking about hormones and how helpful they are. And there are a lot of real experts out there coming to light. So if you're looking for some people to follow, I'll give you a list at the end.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, that would be amazing because for myself, and I know for everyone listening, because it's like you just you just mentioned, and we may have even talked about this during our last conversation, but unfortunately, women's bodies just aren't studied that much. And it's also not talked about that much. And that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast and why I wanted to get into the women's health space with my health and fitness coaching business, because I like women, when we know when we're more educated about what's happening in this unusual kind of in between stage of, like, perimenopause is a great example. Our bodies are going through these changes. We're not fully in menopause because we still have a cycle, but we're just kind of unsure. We have this brain fog, which I have been experiencing a lot of lately, and it's very frustrating at times. And so this is really cool. And I also love, I just want to just bring to light something and emphasize something that you said, that you don't have to, most women, if you're in perimenopause, like you're in your 40s and you're going through these changes, you don't need all the hormones. You just need the hormones that you're lacking at this stage in your
Yeah,
life.
yeah, and sometimes with perimenopause, the you can actually just supplement with vitamins,
Mm-hmm.
maybe taking some DHEA or DHEA will be enough. That's kind of like the one of the building blocks for your hormones. So if you give your body enough of that, then it will correct a lot of the negative effects. Maybe you need a little pregnenolone to just help you, again, more building blocks, like the very first building block of your hormones. Um, or perhaps a little bit of topical progesterone. So these are things that I offer in my practice when my patients are struggling with their symptoms. Because a lot of people don't have symptoms that are really problematic until they're in menopause,
Mm-hmm.
um, because the sharp decline of everything being gone is what eventually takes its toll on them. But for those of us who do suffer, or even suffer young, it can be really concerning. And so, there fortunately are things that you can do, and it doesn't have to be taking exogenous hormones. It could just be taking supplements that help you build your own hormones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because, for me, like the biggest change that I see is just really the brain fog right now. That's the thing that I just experience the most, which I know is considered a symptom of perimenopause. But it's for me personally, it's not to the point where it's that it can be frustrating at times. Like, for example, I was recording a solo podcast episode the other day and I just completely blanked on what I was talking about. And I had to very quickly like stop, pause, and regroup and just pivot, which, there were, I just had to figure it out as I went along. But it's really not that big of a deal for me right now, and I'm sure with a lot of women. What do you feel, or what are you aware of, if any, about the risks involved in taking any hormone replacement therapy?
Yeah, that's a really good question because there were studies that were released like 20 years ago that basically prevented almost all women from wanting to even try hormones. They said that it causes cancer and, the, and if something's going to cause cancer in your body, why would you take it? So, and, and that was not a good study. That there are certain things that we do when conducting experiments in science to make sure that what results you have are accurate, and they just didn't do that properly in that highly publicized study. And now that is coming to light, 2024, 2023. Anyway, there's really not much risk with taking bioidentical hormone therapy if you're balancing it properly. The real risk that we have in our bodies is that our metabolism is out of whack. And
Mhm.
you might recognize immediately what I'm talking about because you're a nutritionist, Melissa, but it's like our body can be in anabolic or catabolic states. And if we're consistently in an anabolic state, which is like a building state, it's what you're in as a kid, and you're growing, all your cells are multiplying, you're working out, putting on muscle mass, you're um in the sun, eating a lot of food, you're building, but there is a time when we need to reverse that and go into like a catabolic state. So the way that humans are designed are we're supposed to be a little thinner in the winter time, um, not eating as much because we're, running around looking for food. It's not as plentiful. And in our society, yet, when do we get fat? It's in the holidays. So it's like actually
Mhm.
the opposite of how we were biologically engineered. So what can we do to fix it if we give our bodies a chance to rest? And when I say rest, I mean become catabolic. We are fasting and
Mhm.
we are allowing our metabolism to go into ketosis. And when we do that, and what the big deal there is we're allowing our cells to clean themselves up, to repair DNA, to break out the dust buster, wipe away the cobwebs, reduce inflammation. All of this entire cycle of anabolism, catabolism, winter, summer, the yin and yang of it, we have lost. And so if hormones are by nature, the estrogen, testosterone, they are anabolic. And so you don't really want to be in that building and growing cycle all of the time because let's say you have a little damage to your DNA and you're building and growing all the time, you're not cleaning it up. Well, that's how tumors are formed. So
Mhm.
why do I care about that? Well, I have breasts and you do too. I want to make sure all those cells are healthy. So if you're a real thin gal, you're gonna be able to find and small chested, you're gonna find that tumors or irregularities more easily than someone who's larger or have big breasts. So it's so important for us to make sure that we incorporate catabolism, not cannibalism, catabolism.
Yes. There, there is a difference, just
Oh,
to,
such.
to be perfectly clear. We're not talking
Yeah.
about eating each other, okay? Don't eat your friends, okay? I mean, I guess you can if you want to. I always know, like, if there were an apocalypse or something like that, I always, would just go for the most muscular person because they have the most muscle meat. So, anyways, back to catabolism,
Yes, so
not cannibalism.
catabolism. So you just want to give your body a chance to clean house. So
Mhm.
if you think about it, if you are not in good shape and you have big breasts, and there's a much higher chance that something is brewing already in your body. And there's stuff brewing in all of our bodies, but
Mhm.
for those of us who don't have any innate gene mutations that would cause us to have a higher susceptibility to cancers or something. Um, Depending on how you allow your body to rest and allow your body to grow, it's going to be safer for you to take anabolic medications like or hormones, estrogen, testosterone, if you're fitter and leaner because your body just has more of a chance to create balance. So if someone's really heavy and gotten out of shape and again like has a big breast, I'm more concerned about them being on hormones consistently. Maybe it can help them through a tough phase. Maybe if they're, just feeling really down and depressed and they need a boost, like maybe that will help them. But I think what's really important is alongside that, getting the nutritional counseling, getting to exercise, getting sunlight, building a community. There's so much that goes into like the balance of good health because we can talk about just hormones, but then we really kind of miss the boat if we don't include like the other elements when you're in a consultation to receive
Mhm.
hormones. I hope that makes sense. It's a lot of information, but
Yes.
it,
So
oh,
yeah, it makes perfect sense to me because I obviously study this stuff myself and geek out on it. I don't feel like I study it to the as in depth as you have gone in your training. However, I do study women's bodies and the intermittent fasting that makes total sense to me as to how your body can benefit from that breakdown
yeah.
period, that breakdown phase, rather than, like you said, just growing, growing, growing. And also, there's a lot of benefits to intermittent fasting, which we won't get into all the intricacies today. Maybe in another day we could talk about that. But I have also read that intermittent fasting is actually really good for menopausal women and postmenopausal women because of the low estrogen levels, because of the low
Yes.
or little estrogen levels.
Mhm.
So that makes, yeah, complete sense to me.
Yeah, so when I see patients, they're always going to get a conversation about other lifestyle
Mhm.
options, like food and exercise, and you want hormones, we can do it. But okay, so what else? There are labs, right? So let's
Mhm.
say you want to start on hormones. We need to draw levels, especially if you're in perimenopause, because your hormones are fluctuating. They could be all over the place. Very typical combination that I see is low progesterone. Progesterone is released by your egg. And so you have a surge of it when the egg's released, and then when you get your period and the egg basically dies and goes away, you have no progesterone. Um, and then what happens is when you lose that progesterone, you might get grumpy, you might get hangry, you might get like all sorts of, the PMS symptoms. So even teens sometimes need a little progesterone to help them through that crazy time that they can go through when you lose your progesterone. But in perimenopause, you lose it, but it also just gets lower than it was because the egg quality is not as good. And the funny thing about it is you have like, let's say 1/10 of the amount ideally of progesterone to estrogen. So this is estrogen, this is progesterone. So as your hormones drop naturally as you get older, where did progesterone go? It's gone. Like
Hmm.
it's out first because it was the lowest to begin with. So a lot of people will need that one first. And then concurrently, a lot of times they lose testosterone as well. So we can supplement, but I usually try to get them to do um, the like DHEA or pregnenolone supplementation before we try hormones for the perimenopausal ladies. With the ladies who are in menopause, you're in menopause, you haven't had a period for a year, and you just feel tired, and your skin is changing because you don't have the estrogen to help with that. Yes, it is good to get labs to see where you are, but you don't have to at the first visit. You
Mm.
can just start on the hormone and then come back after the hormones are in your body, and see how they are in your body, um, with the labs, like, 2 months later or 3 months later. It's more important for a lot of gals to just get it in them
Hmm.
so they start feeling better because a lot of times people will just wait until they're just dead and then they're like,
Yeah.
"Help me." And it's like, okay, well, let's try this
Yeah.
and see how they feel and then see what the labs say as a result of it being in their system.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up also, and I know you talked about this last time we talked about, focusing on your nutrition too, and exercise. Because I was listening to a podcast a couple weeks ago, an interview with Dr. Mindy Pels, who you may be familiar with, but she was talking about how progesterone gets elevated when you eat like starchy carbs, like sweet potatoes, white potatoes, starchy carbs like that. And it really like clicked in my head like, oh, this is why I always crave potatoes. Like
Mm.
right before I like am gonna like I'm at the second half of the luteal phase, right before I start my period, like this makes total sense to me now. My body, the progesterone is just so low that my body's just craving that because I also notice that I don't sleep well and I
Hmm.
tend to get insomnia. Like I'll
Yes.
wake up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and then I won't be able to get back to sleep for at least an hour. And I'm usually a pretty good sleeper because I move my body and I eat pretty clean and I go to bed at a decent time. I don't drink a lot of caffeine or alcohol. So I sleep pretty good, but I do notice a difference. Yeah, so it may, the way you explained it too, with the ratios of estrogen to progesterone, that just helps me understand it so much better. Like why progesterone is an important hormone to replace.
Yeah. And so if it's somebody who's young, like a teen or something who gets all crazy around the period, progesterone topical works wonders. Um, or, even in their 20s or whatever. But once you get to like kind of perimenopausal stuff, difficulty with sleep and all, hot flashes and all this stuff, you can try the topical stuff, but if that doesn't work, they have them as pills. They have a lot of different applications. They have creams. There's all sorts of different options to get it in your body.
Mhm.
But I still only prescribe it so many days a month
Mm,
because you want to have that natural balance where you're receiving it and you're not just like when you have an egg. When you have an egg, you're receiving it. It's only that viable for a little while, and then it dies, and then your period begins. So I like to prescribe progesterone with a bit of a break, like a 10-day break in the month if it's like really helps you, or if you're one of those who like can't sleep without it. I'm like, well, at least give me 5 days out of the month, no
Mhm.
progesterone. I want to make sure your period is fine. I want to make sure that you have a period. I want to make sure that you're not bleeding too much or developing, you know, different sort of issues um, when you have so much growth going on with estrogen in your body, because excessive estrogen is it can be problematic, grows fibroids and tissues. So don't like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you threw that in there about how you cycle the progesterone in there and all the hormones for that matter, because I was also, that was going to be, that was one of the questions that popped into my head. Like, how long do you take this and like, how do you take it? Like, so you just answered that, like it's cyclical. So you take it for
Yeah.
X amount of days and then take X amount of days off from it.
Yeah, I try to mimic the natural cycle of your hormones, or you just take it like when you need it, if you're in perimenopausal. But if you're in menopause and we're supplementing estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, I'll let you stay on your estrogen and testosterone, but I'm going to keep you on somewhat a lower level. I don't want you running around feeling like Hercules, because you didn't even feel that way when you were 25,
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to keep things like artificially high. You
Yeah.
want that sweet spot. So it does take a lot of communication, and the progesterone, like I said, we cycle. Um, and if you only needed it 10 days a month, great, but most likely you'll need it more like 20 days a month, because it helps you so much and it helps
Mhm.
balance your estrogen and all that.
Yeah.
So less is more. I'm not saying you need to stop though, because
Yeah.
the thought was always like just the minimal amount for the minimal time possible. I'm not in that camp. You can use it till you die. Fine with me. You're
Okay.
80 years old, no problem there. Just make sure also that you're healthy, and if you
Yeah.
need to have a season of like, including intermittent fasting and you know, great. Like, let's do that. It's just going to ensure that you're as healthy as you can be for as long as you can be.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm glad that you threw in there that you'll keep prescribing it for women until they're 80 in their 80s, and beyond, however long they want to take it, because that was also one of my questions, like how long do you take it, so that that answers my question. So, just also a little side note for intermittent fasting. I'm a big fan of it when it's needed. However, I always put a disclaimer out there with my clients, because I've had clients try it and their bodies don't handle it very well and they give up really quickly. Just a little note on intermittent fasting. There's a way, if you're very strategic as to how you do it, you can really reap the benefits that Dana is talking about. But one thing I work with my clients, I tell them, don't, if you've never done it before, don't just dive in and do it. Like, do it with some sort of strategy behind it, and that's something I can help anyone with, to kind of, because it's all personalized. Some days I do really well fasting, and other days I do not do very well fasting, because I notice that depending on where I am in my cycle, like where my progesterone is low, I'm at that phase in my cycle where I'm at the end, I'm going to start my period, I just want to eat all the time. So I don't do well when I intermittent fast. But after my period's done, then that's a time when I'm like, yeah, let's just my I don't have I'm not as hungry. So that for me is the ideal time uh, to do some intermittent fasting. So just a little side note on that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I love to exercise, but I won't do it on days that I'm, working out hard. I
Yeah.
exercise 4 days a week. So those days I'm not going to fast, guys, because you're building muscle. So you need to feed muscle protein.
Yeah.
You want to be anabolic. You don't want to be catabolic. But then the days I don't exercise, my rest days, I will just not eat breakfast.
Mhm.
Simple as that. And then the rest of the day, I'll just eat, eggs and um, protein, high protein things, things with fat in them, natural things. I won't eat a bunch of carbs. So that seems to work for me. So obviously, everyone's going to be pretty different in what works for them. Part of the reason is scientific. There's a glucose and insulin ratio, and it's like, what is that? You can monitor your blood and see what level you're at. If you are breaking down glycogen, which is like a stored source of energy in your muscles, when that runs out, then what happens? If you keep fasting, you're gonna break down muscle. So you got to stop
Mhm.
at that point. So there are nuances there that it's very helpful to work with somebody who can
Mhm.
familiarize and create an action plan. So I definitely think that's smart to offer
Yeah.
that to your patients.
I want to kind of shift gears a little bit, if that's okay with you, and just kind of talk about how estrogen and progesterone protect the brain, and also just kind of touch on like very high level, like about
Okay.
also how estrogen protects the heart too. This is some of the research that I've
Yeah.
learned in this last, 6 months since I just did an even deeper dive into more of the scientific parts
Sure.
of all
Okay.
this.
So really basic and very understandable. Your organs, like all of your organs, pretty much,
Mhm.
have receptors for estrogen and testosterone. So when your cells don't receive what they have receptors for, a receptor is basically like a little door or a little arm that will open a door. So they're like, oh, the cell is out there waiting for estrogen to hit, and then a function happens inside the cell because it has estrogen locked on or testosterone. So when it doesn't get that, it's missing functions. So it doesn't matter if it's your heart, doesn't matter if it's your brain, doesn't matter if it's your testes, things will shrivel. It will atrophy. Your vagina will atrophy. Like you need to have these hormones to keep all of your cells happy. You need other things too, like we've said, but yeah, that is why it helps protect your brain or the your vagina or even like your intestines. That's why women get a lot of frozen shoulders with menopause. It's a real
Mm.
thing. It's not psychological, So if you are having, these symptoms, like it might be something to consider.
Okay, so I met a woman last year at an event that I did that had a frozen shoulder. And she asked me, like, do you have any experience working with people with a frozen shoulder? And I have zero experience. So this is really good to know because she was the first person I'd actually met in person, like face to face, and had a conversation with about it. Yeah, that makes total sense to me. So another great reason to really, if you need to, if you are in perimenopause or and you do have low hormone levels for whatever it is, if you're local here in Ventura County, definitely go see Dana. Um,
Please. Me.
and because also I totally, completely 100% trust Dana because we have a lot of the same values. Well, not all, basically all the same values when it comes to lifestyle habits. So I love having you, Dana, within my referral network to send people to because I completely trust you that you'll take really great care of them, in a way that is out of scope of practice for me. So, But yeah, so and this is one of the huge reasons why I want to really just get this information and education out there to women because I feel like on a high level, we all know hormones are important, but we don't really know on like putting a microscope on it how important they are and how they affect it and how when we get that when we follow that natural, well, most as natural, normal for us, I should say, normal for each individual, that's the hormonal cycle, then we could thrive. We could sleep great, we could have consistent energy levels, we can age gracefully, not necessarily be 25 when we're actually 45, but we
That's given we're already doing the other things that
yes.
you need to for good health. It's really the people who are already doing everything that they're supposed to do for good health and had success with it, but then something changed. And that's when I feel like hormones are like, yes, that's you
Mhm.
got the right answer. So we're going for it. Where there are plenty of other patients who lots of other stuff, and maybe hormones can help them in the situation, but it's not going to take them past the finish line because they still got to clean up all the other
Yeah.
issues that they have with their living situation.
Yeah. There's no magic wand or hormone replacement therapy that can just fix everything. You have to do the work and you have to be willing to do the work. And
Yeah.
I'm totally 100% confident that, I can help my clients if they're doing the work and you can help them with those hormonal supplements if needed. Um, and if they're doing the work, the combination of the two it is in a way like magic, you know.
Yeah.
Our
You can
bodies our bodies
level
become
up,
happy. What's that?
Yeah. You can
Yeah.
really level up with
Yeah.
if you use all of your tools. So,
Yeah.
you know, maybe
Yeah.
2025 is a year if you're listening. Um,
Yeah.
do those things.
Yeah. So, cool. All right. What else? Is there anything else you'd like to share about hormones or anything?
Yeah, actually, so like I explained before, I'm not the scientist, the person conducting the experiments, but I do read a lot and I try to absorb as much as I can about health and longevity, like Melissa does. Um, so something that I've come across more recently is about sunlight. So in my practice, we have a pretty strong aesthetic client. Botox, filler, threadless, peels, laser treatments, is aesthetic stuff. But I also do bioidentical hormones and some other problem solving for optimal health. But one piece that my aesthetic patients are kind of shocked to find out is I'm like, go get some sunlight,
Mm,
put sunscreen on your face and neck, okay, protect that, maybe the backs of your hands, but get your body in sunlight in the morning. Look east, okay? Look at the sunrise. Let the sunlight hit the back of your retina. They found out more recently that there is something that happens when sunlight hits the back of your retina with no contact, no glasses on. It actually converts into DHA, which is like what you would find in fish. It's a
mhm.
like a fatty vitamin basically that your body uses to create hormones. So that's a piece that might be missing. That's totally free and easy to access every single morning. So get some sunlight. It's okay. First thing in the morning, you don't even have to wear sunscreen, ladies. But in the midday, of course, I promote wearing your sunscreen on your face.
Yeah, me too.
I don't want anybody to burn, okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
I
the
don't know. I don't
sunscreen
either.
really good for you. It actually, in your skin, UV rays make vitamin D. And vitamin D is a hormone also. So your body has receptors for this all over the place, and they've related low vitamin D with morbidity and all sorts of things. But the best way to get it is from the sun because then your body's going through all of the processes to make the D, which is the most natural way to receive it, the most bioavailable. So get your early morning sunlight, get your exercise, talk to Melissa about your diet, your exercise, and if you need hormones, I'm happy to help you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up about the sun because and by the way, if you live in Southern California where we live, um, there's really no excuse not to be able to go outside in the morning. I know it's been like in the 40s here,
Yeah, it's
maybe
really
the low
cold.
50s. It's
40,
cold.
man. We are very spoiled.
It's cold, and I put
It's
cold in
freezing.
quotes if you're watching this because my brother lives in Maryland, and I just talked to him yesterday, and he said that it's going to be like 8 degrees next week. And thankfully, he actually won't be in Maryland. He's traveling to Arizona next week, so he's going to actually miss the very, very cold single digit stint that they're going to have where he lives. But yes, there's no excuse. Put on your puffy jacket that you break out when it's 65 degrees. I know if you're in Southern California, there's no shame in that. I've lived here for 14 years now, and I grew up in a place that actually has winter and 20-degree weather in the winter. Um, but I put my puffy jacket on when it's 55 degrees outside. So, but just get outside, get that sun in your eyes and soak up all the vitamin D, all that sunshine so your body can make the vitamin D on its own. And if you don't live in Southern California and it is sunny, just take advantage of the sun whenever you can, is the bottom
Yeah,
line. Just
exactly. And
figure
the
out what, yeah.
rays are different all during the day, more UVB, more UVA, there's different combinations, but that early morning sunlight is so good, so important for us humans. So anyways, that's my free recommendation.
Yeah, I love that. Love that recommendation. Love it. So, cool. Anything else you want to share?
I think that's it. Thank you so much for having.
Cool. Thank you. And do you want to share any of the experts that you follow?
The top person that I love following because she's very like pro women and pro science and like getting all of the menopause misfacts out of the way
Mm,
is Marie Claire Haver. She's a doctor out I believe she's on the East Coast, but her Instagram handle is Dr. Mary Claire, spelled Claire, Dr. Mary Claire. Very smart and informative. She's always educating patients about things.
cool.
So she is my favorite. And then I have another doctor that I follow and these are people who are just really, really in knee deep with the research and writing books and things like that. So my second recommendation is following Courtney Hunt, MD.
Okay.
Brilliant, brilliant woman. She doesn't talk as much about taking hormones, more to do with like fixing your metabolism, preventing
Mm,
cancers, getting sunlight. So she goes on a hike every morning with her followers and does a live Instagram, and it's really interesting.
cool.
She doesn't sit down and explain things, but she repeats her messages over and over. So you just kind of got to get the cadence of her explanations and everything that she explains, it just makes sense. It's not like you don't really need to go and do the research necessarily to fully understand how she got to that conclusion. So that's a really interesting person to follow as well. So those are probably my,
Cool.
yeah.
Cool. I love that. Yeah, I love just being inspired and learning new things and yeah, and learning from people who are experts in this.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So I hope you enjoy.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing those. So, all right, Dana. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Okay, sounds good. Have a wonderful afternoon.
The Wellness Abundance podcast is sponsored by Wellness Abundance Coaching. At Wellness Abundance Coaching, we help women create flexible nutrition and fitness plans that fit into their life to help them lose weight effortlessly and navigate the different hormonal seasons of their life with clarity, empowerment, and flexibility. We offer one-on-one and group health and fitness coaching. To learn more about how we can help you navigate the different seasons of your life and become the healthiest version of yourself, schedule a time to chat with us by visiting melissaking.net.